Gateway's in trouble, crabs are invading Starbase, and Starliner is still in space. On this week's Flame Trench.
And here we go. We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be normal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, roll, planet.
Water towers, fly! Yes! Echo down to nominal.
Flight downside SPD off. Bring in SPD off. Off. It's orange! 145!
Oh my god!
Decollage.
What is it?
Put that in the big bag, Eagle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
The methane would be igniting the flare, correct?
Yikes. You dead? Sure. We don't need any more of these.
Welcome to this week's Flame Trench, NSF's weekly informal news show. If you want the straight news, you can watch Twist, which we released earlier today, but this is where we get a little spicy, hence the name Flame Trench. I'm Jack Beyer for NSF. Welcome. I see the 5x5s in chat. Thank you, chat, for letting me know we're coming through loud and clear. As always, though, we have our clever cohort of co-hosts, starting off this week with EJ. EJ, what you reading this week, buddy?
Hey, I got Rocket Ranch. Rocket Ranch.
Nice.
It's basically an encyclopedia on integration hardware for the Apollo program.
Nice.
10 out of 10 would recommend.
I feel like we might need a book circle with EJ. Also, nice hat, by the way.
Thank you.
Quality Cygnus hat.
Cygnus hat. Yep.
Well, also joining us this week is Trevor. Trevor, do you have a book or a funny hat?
I do not have a book nor a hat, but I am here this week, so we got some good things to talk about, and then some also less exciting things to talk about, like news we don't want to share, but we'll get there.
I mean, you can't pick and choose your news. Sometimes the week has some disappointing things in it, as we will get into. Chat, if you have any questions as we go through today's episode, at NASASpaceflight in chat, and we'll see your question pop up in some software we have running in the background. And also, I don't know if we have him right now. We have the disembodied voice of Ryan, which we'll be talking to when we get to Starship. Ryan, are you there? Say hi. He's not there. All right. Let's get into it. Lunar Gateway, huh? It's overweight, and the GAO report that came out is pretty damning. I don't even know where to start. EJ, I guess I'll just let you. I'm basically right now. Picture in your mind, Lunar Gateway is Indiana Jones, and EJ is the boulder rolling towards Indiana Jones. So let's.
Jack, give me the idol. Give me the idol. Give me the whip.
Let us have it, EJ. What's going on with Lunar Gateway?
All right. Well, there was a GAO report. GAO stands for the Government Accountability Office. All right. The Government Accountability Office released a report regarding the power and propulsion element and the habitation and logistics outpost, the first two modules for NASA's Lunar Gateway. So, first and foremost, I'm sorry, but my camera is not the best today. I had a little bit of hardware issues here, and I'm still trying to work the kinks out. You'll just have to take VHF, EJ, and adjust the rabbit ears. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
that's what's going.
Fine. We'll pretend
we're
watching you on the old standard def TV. Yeah.
Do you believe in miracles? Anyway, all right. Sorry. So this GAO report had some interesting things. The two biggest things are, well, actually, the biggest thing is what's called co-manifested vehicle mass, or CMV. The CMV is basically the combined mass of the power and propulsion element and HALO, because originally these two modules were supposed to launch in SLS's cargo carrier on an SLS Block 1B, and Orion would put it out there and send it. And a little while back, NASA figured out that their SLS's contract structuring does not really permit, the way it's kind of set up doesn't really, they couldn't make the SLS cores for this on any usable schedule. So the decision was made a little while back to move the power and propulsion element and the halo into, make them one payload and launch them on a Falcon Heavy. And that's where this GAO, co-manifested vehicle mass thing, comes into play here. Long story short, they're both way too heavy. It's too high in mass, because weight has nothing to do with it. We're talking about spaceflight. It's not great. It's not great.
It's a fairly big change to go from two separate things to one thing on one launch, co-manifested.
Yeah, that is the least of the problems here, Jack. Yeah, that's the least of our issues. So let's start with the power and propulsion element. So the PPE is more or less working okay. It has a little bit of what's called a negative mass margin. Negative mass margin is a nice way of saying it's too heavy.
Right.
That's why we're talking about CMV, co-manifested vehicle mass. So, because now, once again, you're not launching PPE by itself, you're not launching Halo by itself. They chose to combine them together. And when you combine them together and put them on a smaller rocket, Falcon Heavy, even though you're saving costs, it's making a more complicated vehicle. Now, that's not necessarily what's wrong with the power and propulsion element. The power and propulsion element's thrusters are not adequate enough to be able to station keep the gateway when Starship is attached to it.
Oh my God.
Yeah, the thrusters are inadequate. Yeah, that's not great.
If you saw Twist this week, there was a graphic of a Starship docked to Gateway, and it's comical to say the least.
Yeah.
Well, just on that specific element alone, you've played way more Kerbal than me. You're way smarter than me when it comes to orbital mechanics. Just from that alone, plus everything that you've read. Mr. calling you Mr. Book, but couldn't Starship just do the station keeping? Is that it? Like in that scenario, what would prohibit that, or would you have to make the docking adapter way more robust and thus more massy? I don't know. There's the graphic in our back channel.
That's a fair question to ask. So the big thing here is that sure, of course you could do that. Now, what do Starship's HLS's thrusters look like?
Good question.
What's its RCS
Good
look
question.
like? Is it Dragon derived? Is it based off of out of a shelf life commodity, like a propellant? Like if they're using hot gas thrusters or something, it could boil off. Now you got a big problem because you could use too much. Is it using tank ullage, right? Like what does Starship HLS's thruster system look like? I mean, maybe they could lift Dragon thrusters and do that, like what they did with the ISS deorbit module, which just has 43 Dracos just shoehorned on the back. Speaking of Kerbal designs,
I love that thing.
I know it's ridiculous, right? What does the system look like? And the long story short, Jack, is sure, of course you could, but that is going to require another layer of systems engineering to get those two vehicles to talk to each other right.
Right.
Part of good systems engineering and design is making sure stuff like that is figured out. Now, I don't think that's necessarily a mark against the people working on the power and propulsion element or NASA in general, considering when the PPE came on the books, we had no lander. So they didn't know what the lander was going to look like.
Right.
They didn't realize it was going to be this freaking tank of a vehicle, right?
Yeah.
Connected to it. So, guys, if you're looking at this picture here on my right, your left, the thing with the solar panels on the very back has solar electric propulsion. There are ion thrusters. And what they do is they basically flow inert gas through a combustion chamber, and they arc electricity through said combustion chamber utilizing the Hall effect that creates ionized. It ionizes the gas, and the resulting ions create a little bit of thrust. Now, those ion thrusters on the power and propulsion element are off-the-shelf thrusters that are derived from a geostationary satellite. I believe it's a sat bus that's used for, geostationary communication satellite. I forget which one. I know chat will let me know. So those thrusters are, you see, they're those little tiny nubs on the very end of the module in the far left with the solar panels on it. And then you have this this thing right here.
Right.
So the thrusters aren't adequate enough to be able to station keep. Now, all right, sorry, I'm trying to cover this stuff quick. Now, in a rectilinear halo orbit, that is a type of lunar orbit that is relatively resonantly stable. So what does that mean? You just using the big words again.
All I know is I hate rectilinear halo orbit. I hate it. I think it's the stupidest orbit. Oh, you want to come home? You're going to have to wait 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah. No, not a fan of that.
Amongst other things, but please continue.
It seemed like such a random requirement to add from the start.
So,
like it seemed like them choosing that orbit really kind of sabotaged the rest of the program.
Trevor,
it's not great.
Dude, I'm kind of with you guys on that one. I'll bring us back in. Just,
all right, go.
Let me Alex explain you. Sorry, Alex,
cook.
I love you, man. All right, so okay, so this type of rectilinear halo orbit, one big benefit is that it's maintained line of sight to Earth all the time. You don't have it transiting the far side of the moon, so you're in constant communications. So it can be used as a relay for the surface. That's a big deal. If you looked at it just around the moon, it is an eccentric polar orbit with about a 90-degree inclination. Now, what does that mean in plain English? It's really close to the North Pole of the moon and really far away from the South Pole of the moon when it's at its highest point. The reason why is because you're going to be able to maintain radio communications with a base on the South Pole, where NASA wants to go. It's actually not an incredibly bad idea. It's a good place for a relay. It's a good place for a relay. It's a good place to kind of park a station. And what I was getting into is that it's resonant stable. So not a lot of people know. If you're a Kerbal player, you've never experienced this unless you have Principia, right? The Principia mod's crazy, by the way. There are decaying orbits on the moon. The moon does have a small atmosphere, first and foremost, so you're subject to, I would say aerodynamic perturbations, but the aerodynamic perturbations are charged particles that are kind of trapped on the moon. It's not like you can go up there and take your helmet off and be like,
Right.
Not a good idea. Would not recommend. But also, the moon is, because so many things have hit the dang thing, especially on the close side, right? It's more dense on this, like me, it's more dense towards the Earth-facing side. That's why you have those gray lunar basaltic regions, right? The gray spots, right? Where a lot of the Apollo missions landed. That side of the moon, the side that's facing us, is actually denser than the far side of the moon. So what does all that mean in plain English? The moon's gravitational pull is not very uniform, and there are very high deltas in a wide range of gravitational pull in different areas around the moon, because something.
From the Apollo days, the mass concentrations that they had to worry about.
Yep,
Mass
cons. That's where we learned it from. So Gateway, instead of like having something like Apollo where you're working against the grain, where they had to station keep against these gravitational perturbations, right? The Gateway actually utilizes it to change its longitude of ascending node to always be in constant sight. Basically, the radial axis, the radial component of Gateway's orbit is always facing towards Earth, which maintains constant line of sight. And the orbit is stable. It's a stable orbit. It only requires, and why do I bring all this up? It only requires about 10 meters a second station keeping every once in a while, and that's from one of my rocket science buddies that told me that. Rocket guy, you're the man. It doesn't require a lot of thrust to change, to keep in that type of orbit. Now, don't get me wrong. There's nothing as like indefinitely resonant stable orbits. There's always orbital perturbing forces that cannot be predicted. Like what if Jupiter is near you, it's going to pull it in that direction. Or if, Mars is, flying by, when they're orbiting around the solar system, it's closer, it's going to pull you in, the infinitesimally small meters a second in one way or the other. Right. So you're always going to have to do a bit of station keeping. This is mostly resonant, but you only require about a 10 meters a second delta V window here to change it. But that's the thing. Those electric propulsion thrusters on Gateway, and 10 meters a second doesn't seem like much for a Kerbal player, right? That doesn't seem like a lot. Any Kerbal player is like, 10 meters a second, no big deal. I think there's a fan behind me, like a small fan behind me that's pushing air around in my office that makes more thrust than one of those thrusters. So solar electric propulsion is great, but I'm pretty sure if you did that, that's more thrust than one of those things. So long story
they're
short,
super efficient, but very low thrust.
Bingo. Yeah, exactly. So long story short, those thrusters aren't adequate to move something like HLS around. That's the problem with the PPE. That can be forgiven. I would say, like, that's not that big of a fix, but putting bigger thrusters on it means that you're sacrificing something else. It's always a freaking trade-off, right? Especially when you're sending stuff out to the moon. A bigger rocket would be adequate with a useful upper stage, but, we'll get to that later.
We can't have those because we can't have nice things, but please continue.
Exactly. Now, the second part is the Halo module, the Habitation and Logistics Outpost. This is where this gets bad. The Habitation and Logistics Outposts, for whatever reason, when they were doing their systems engineering on mass margins of components, which is something that should be tracked throughout the entire development of the program, right?
Right.
If somebody's like, oh, this needs an extra light bulb, it's like, okay, add a couple grams here and there. And the mass margins, right? The mass of each component should be tracked as the vehicle, as you develop more of it and you start making stuff. With that being said, they just forgot to take into account the wiring, all of the wiring on the Halo module, about 600 kilograms worth of wiring. They just forgot to add that to the final mass tally, which is why we have negative mass margin on our co-manifested vehicle mass.
What's just mind-blowing? Like, how could that possibly be omitted from the calculations until you get to a point where you're like, oh wait, well,
dude, you could do a Michael Bolton, screw up some mundane detail here and there. Like, I get it. There's a lot of things involved, a lot of hands touch this. There's a lot of people involved when you have such a heavily spread to the winds program. Like, if somebody's making the Halo module, somebody's making this, somebody's making that. It'll launch on Falcon Heavy. NASA's overseeing the whole thing. There's a lot of fingers in the pie here. It is easy to make a mistake like this. However, at this point in development on the Halo module, missing a 1,500-pound mass margin is unacceptable. I'm sorry, that's really telling. That shows just frankly awful systems engineering. That's really bad. That is really bad. That would be like, I have a car and the car should have 4 tires, but I only have 3, and I'm going to drive it to the supermarket and it'll work just fine.
Right. Oh,
yeah,
God.
that's a glaring issue. That's really bad. Big red flag. Now, are these problems fixable? Yeah, sure. I mean, NASA in the GEO report went on to say it's like, oh, okay, we'll just basically take these components off. Now, that's also part of good systems engineering. You kind of take that into account. There might be items that are high risk for mass, right? There might be items that are high risk. And, if so, have a contingency plan, be like, okay, this is a component that absolutely needs to be there, like wiring. Maybe you don't need that air conditioner. You know what I mean? Maybe you don't need all the bells and whistles here, right? Like, actually, they do need an air conditioner. You need to breathe. That's important. But that's just an example. So maybe you don't need the racing stripes. So they have contingency. It adds horsepower. So
I mean, hey, it does make it go faster, but that paint does add mass.
So basically, all this stuff coming together basically means that the power and propulsion element and the Halo module combined together are too heavy, even for something crazy like Falcon Heavy to be able to loft this thing into rectilinear Halo orbit. Falcon Heavy can't put it on a proper translunar injection trajectory. Falcon Heavy, and then the gateway thrusters would have a hard time circularizing with the types of mass. Now, once again, this can be fixed. It can be fixed. In development, you're always going to have curveballs, right? I mean, forgetting the wiring is pretty messed up. That's bad.
Forgetting the wiring does it like reminds me of a Proton rocket where they installed the accelerometer upside down, or the Delta II where they didn't do the unit conversion, or the NOAA satellite where they didn't strap it down to the mount while they were doing the turnover in processing, and it just fell off the mount onto the ground. Like,
so bad, dude.
It's one of those things that I laugh, but like, what else can you do? Because spaceflight is incredibly hard and complicated, and when you see something that you would think would be easy, like, this is literal rocket science. Like, how are we just forgetting the mass of the wires?
Now,
but EJ, we do have a question from Joe.
Okay.
Saying, why not separate the 2 payloads and just launch them on 2 Falcon Heavies if Falcon Heavy can't launch the co-manifested vehicle?
Halo has no thrusters on it.
Crap.
Yeah. That's a big problem because you got to remember, guys, these payloads were designed to launch on SLS in the aft cargo carrier, or the universal stage adapter, not aft cargo carrier. That's a shuttle thing. A good thing that they should have done, frankly, to be honest with you. But that's a whole rant for a shuttle Sunday if I ever get on that one day.
Oh, you should.
Yeah, that'd be fun. So the universal stage adapter on SLS Block 1B, Orion was designed to move these components into place. So that the idea is that Orion basically works as your space tug. It'll assemble a station for you until they get an arm out there in which you can support berthing and building the station, like just what they do with the ISS, right?
Yep.
Halo module wasn't designed for that. That's why, and it's funny because, you know, when they first thought of this, they were like, yeah, we'll maybe launch it on SLS, and for whatever reason, as far as I can tell, didn't bother telling the SLS people that they want to launch this on SLS. It's the same thing with Europa Clipper. They put Europa Clipper, you know, the program got funded, the probe got funded, and they're like, yeah, we'll launch it on SLS. And then the SLS people were like, wait, what? Really? wait, what? That was the reason why that moved to Falcon Heavy as well. But
hey, Teddy, we got any spare SLSs in the warehouse? Nah,
I don't have any of those. Right? So
it really seems like in general a lot of the all of the payloads that were at some point planned to launch on SLS. It seems like there's no communication or expectation about how many or what the production rate of SLS was going to be. Because when you're making barely one a year, like it makes zero sense to launch a payload on it. It's just it was a weird miscommunication for sure.
It's just like a lot of different payload providers figured SLS would be there without actually checking to see if it would be there.
Bingo, dude. That's exactly where I was going with this. This, you know, you could say, oh, it's the Halo people, or it's NASA not holding their contractors accountable, or it's the contractors not being held accountable. You could point the finger a lot of places. The real glaring issue here is that we thought it would be somehow a good idea to design a vehicle that maybe goes back to the moon or maybe goes back to Mars, right? There's no integrated architecture here. Like to this day, what is SLS supposed to do, right? And don't get me wrong, that's not a knock against SLS. I think SLS is a pretty good design with the Block 1B and the exploration upper stage. I think it's good. I'd say seriously, dude, it's a capable vehicle. And ironically, it isn't the bottleneck anymore, which is really funny. Everything else seems to be.
Are you thinking it's like more of a failure of vision or like a lack of vision kind of thing, or?
Yeah, dude. I mean, let's use an airplane analogy this time, dude. You don't design an airframe you don't go to design an airplane, right, and be like, you know what, this engine or this plane might have two engines later. I'll design it with one, but we really want two. And then you get it to fly with one engine, right? And then you add another one later. That's not how systems engineering works for aerospace engineering. You don't do interims. You don't do stopgaps. And if you do, you best be having a good roadmap to overcome that. Because guess what? You know, a lot of people say the best fix, the most permanent fix is a temporary fix, right? And that logic especially applies to spaceflight. The interim cryogenic propulsion stage for SLS, you know, we chose to do that. We chose to use something off the shelf, you know, because it was cheaper. But
it's interim. It's just interim. Don't worry about it. We'll change it to something else later.
Yeah, exactly. So you're going to change it to something else later. I mean, I guess you can do that, but why? How is that going to save you money? You're going to have to re-baseline the vehicle with a new upper stage. I mean, which is what NASA has to do. Like, this is what I mean. Like, there's no integrated architecture. SLS had no clear stated goal. And until the Artemis program itself came around in 2018, 2019, we really weren't sure what the thing was going to do. And this gets into two major points. And this is where this gets a little spicy, okay? Jack, you're right. There's no integrated freaking vision here. Like, what are you guys doing? I don't think can you tell me what NASA's doing right now? And dude,
going to the moon and beyond.
Yeah. What does that even mean? That's just word salad. You just said some words, right? Like this is where they're going to get a little spicy, man.
Going to the moon sustainably on the least sustainable architecture imaginable.
Yeah, it's absurd, right? Like this is ridiculous. Like you know, you hear people at NASA have the gall to say that Apollo was somehow not as sustainable. Yeah, guess what? Whatever your abstract goals are with SLS and Artemis, the Saturn V, the LEM, and the CSM could do it easily. Could the Saturn V build Gateway? Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it probably would be better at it. You know, so don't give me this, Apollo.
Can you imagine a Halo module that's made of a Saturn upper stage like Skylab was?
It'd be
it's
killer,
just
man.
massive.
Awesome.
All this room for activities.
Yeah, so yeah, exactly. This is what I mean. Like, you know, you have the gall to say that, and then you can't even tell me what are you going to do with this? So the other thing to take into account, with this Gateway stuff and this co-manifested vehicle mass, is that this Falcon Heavy needs to be ready to go, ready to launch 3 months before Artemis 4, which means that SpaceX and the two commercial contractors for the PP and the Halo have to basically have all their T's crossed and I's dotted, and the vehicle basically teed up and ready to go 3 months before Artemis 4. So Gateway has the time to get out there so Artemis 4 can get to it.
Right.
When is Artemis 4 launching? Anyone? NASA doesn't even know. That's the other part of that GAO report. We're going to assess when this thing needs to be launched, and we're going to figure it out. That's that. Yeah, there you go. Like, guys, this is ridiculous. The big overarching problem here is that there's not really any accountability. There's no accountability here. Don't get me wrong. This isn't a knock against SLS. I think SLS is a good rocket. My only criticism is that it needs to launch more, because expediency is key here. The only way to keep a government program accountable and in line, historically speaking here, is to have a deadline, have a clearly stated goal. If you look at like the Apollo program, I don't know, that's a pretty good example. Right, get to the moon before the 1970, and B, as a kind of a undertone, wasn't explicitly mentioned, but by President Kennedy, but an undertone was beat the Russians there. To serve, to organize, and measure the best of our skills. Right, that was the clearly stated goal. You could even look at other projects with clearly stated goals. Look at the Manhattan Project. You know, Oppenheimer came out a little while ago. A lot of people are interested in that kind of stuff. There's a clearly stated goal: make nuke before Germany does. Done. There you go. Right, there's clearly stated goals here,
right,
and that's what you need to keep these programs going. Without any goals, without any deadlines, without any integrated architecture to accomplish said goal, we're just kind of scattered to the winds. And that's, frankly, guys, like this is the part that's going to get spicy. And maybe I shouldn't say this. Like, and I say this out of love because I love NASA. Everybody here does. We're all here because NASA's a beacon for space exploration. It should be on the cutting edge of stuff. And this program is just scattered to the winds. It's ridiculous. And all that does is create infighting and makes every single program want to grasp for, funding and cancel another program just to make sure that they have the funding to get their program done. That creates infighting in NASA. That's terrible. NASA is compartmentalized like that on purpose to get the whole system to work together. And what we've done here is we've created a scenario where it does the opposite of that. Why do you think like Viper just magically went on the chopping block? The biggest thing was they were worried about funding overlap with other missions, which means there's infighting for funding. Same thing with Chandra. Same thing with Mars sample return. Same thing with canceling the XEMU program. This needs to stop. This is unacceptable. Like we should not be cool with this. It's terrible. Like it's unacceptable, and I think it's a symptom of a much bigger thing. There's no overarching goal. There's no vision, Jack. Like just what you said.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate how spicy you are about this because
It's annoying.
You're sustaining me right now. So thank you.
Yeah.
I don't really have anything to say or add other than. It's disappointing. You would hope that NASA could end this sort of infighting between their programs.
Well, the only way to do that, dude, is to have an overarching program. NASA needs a goal. Not we might go to the moon soon or we might go to Mars soon.
All right. So if we were you are NASA Senator, Administrator, Astronaut Bill Nelson, and you are going to, give NASA a vision. What vision do you give them? I'm going to make Trevor go first. Like, if you could snap your fingers tomorrow, Trevor, and shuffle this all around, what would you do?
I think I think one thing that NASA has been very clear with the success of commercial crew and commercial cargo and whatnot is that NASA really just, like, day one, they need to get out of rockets in general. That is not what they are good at this point. They're terrible at it compared to the commercial entities. And they really need to focus on, in my opinion, the science missions where, NASA has been having win after win after win with Perseverance, James Webb, Euclid, all of the massive telescopes that they've and other science missions they've launched recently. I think that definitely makes a little bit more sense. And then from the exploration side of things, I feel like borderline NASA seems not needed for going back to the moon between Blue Origin and SpaceX and all of the commercial suit development and whatnot. Like, obviously there are large subsidies, but it seems very possible that that could be done, to some extent commercially, if not have everything on a fixed price contract, and then just leave them to working on the bigger problems like going to Mars or whatever. I think that really needs to be the clear objective, since that's something that we don't know what problems we're going to have to solve to go to Mars yet, when we have a very good idea of what problems need to be solved to go to the moon.
All right, guys, I have a question because
What?
like EJ,
Who's
this is
this?
God. This is God. I'm over here in Connecticut. So EJ's talking about the fact that NASA isn't controlling things, right? And it's almost like the left hand isn't talking to the right hand, and the right hand isn't talking to the foot, right? So it seems like this seems to be a situation where one company has built one thing and never told the other company that. And I'm making a hypothetical, right? Never told the other company that they were doing that. So now there's a problem. And then Trevor, on the other hand, is saying, well, NASA needs to just get out of building rockets. But isn't the problem that there's no project manager? Like, there is no single vision. Like EJ said, there's no one project managing the Artemis program.
There's no goal. I mean, Trev, I definitely can see the argument for saying, like, oh, NASA, they just get out of the rocket industry. This is ridiculous. But you cited a lot of awesome JPL projects, dude. Well, I mean, people have a short memory, guys. There was a time where JPL was in the same position in the early 80s. JPL couldn't make anything freaking work. It seemed like they couldn't get anything done. And what fixed that whole thing was some accountability going in there and basically cracking the whip to make sure they got stuff done, right? And look at what JPL is now. I refuse to believe that it can't be fixed. I think that NASA jumping ship off designing rockets is notoriously short-sighted. Not necessarily because, they need to be making rockets. I mean, personally, I think, if SpaceX can land a rocket, NASA should have an in-house thing that can do the same thing. I believe in having parity there. That's the most sustainable way forward, right? But also, I think that NASA shouldn't. I think that just getting out of the rocket game will end up causing a huge defund to the spaceflight economy completely, right? Like, you could say whatever you want about SLS, and yes, it does carry a heavy price tag, SLS Orion, but that is aerospace engineers that are bolstering our industrial base. That makes the space economy bigger. You could say, well, the public say, yeah, you could say jobs program. Yeah, you'd probably be right. But you got to remember that NASA getting out of the game of engineering their own rockets is a catastrophic destabilization of the spaceflight economy. You're putting thousands of aerospace engineers out of work and flooding the commercial market with that. I don't think that's wise. I really don't. I don't think that's a good idea. I think the system needs to be fixed, and I refuse to believe that it can't be.
I see. I see arguments on both sides. I'm not sure where exactly I would fall on that. Although, one would hope, in your doomsday scenario, EJ, all of those engineers that then flood the market go on to make startups of their own that innovate and disrupt in ways that they couldn't at their entrenched corporate origins. But
yeah, Jack.
Okay, but we're getting a little bit off. Like, what is your vision? Because I asked Trevor what he's okay. What your Senator, Administrator, and Astronaut Bill Nelson. What's your vision? How do we fix it?
Okay, so yeah, I agree. We could sit here and whine about it. The right question to ask is how do you fix this? Honestly, at this point, I'd pull PPE and Halo. Just get rid of it, or put it back on SLS. But now you're screwing SpaceX out of a Falcon Heavy launch. I'm pretty sure they'll have something to say about that. Why do we have this? Why? Or just at the very least, put the PPE up there, use it as a relay, and do exactly what Apollo did. The Apollo program looked at the idea of putting a station into orbit, and they saw all the gravitational perturbations that happened and said, "Nah, we're not doing that. Let's just go down to the surface." Right?
Yeah, we do have a bunch of really good questions, and one of them was, why not just remove the crew? This is Kyler saying, why does Gateway need to be crewed? Why can't it just be a comms relay in Halo orbit? Like, that makes way more sense to me. Put a comms relay in Halo orbit, bam. Then you have comms constantly to the Earth, no matter where you are on the surface of the moon. But you don't have to put an entire freaking station there. Anyway, my vision would be...
Yeah,
my vision would be Moon by the end of the decade, Mars by 2035. Or if you want to be more realistic, it would be Moon by the end of the decade, Mars by the end of next. Like, anything else that prolongs that timeline is a distraction, and we just let's get there, and we'll evolve the situation from that. Like, we don't have to have a Ferrari parked in some exquisite boutique non-GMO like organic orbit. Like, we can just have it in a nice equatorial orbit. It's fine. We don't have to land at the South Pole of the moon. We can land near the equator. It's fine. Like,
South Pole is warm. The South Pole is a good spot for a base, but we got to figure out where that ice is. Oh wait, we just canceled the rover that's supposed to do that. Whoops.
Hey, but we're sending a block of concrete instead, so that's
I'm sure that's really good at finding ice.
Hear me out. When the concrete hits the surface where the ice is, it will throw up a bunch of ice into the lunar atmosphere, for lack of a better word, and then we can be able to detect the ice using LRO and whatever else is orbiting the moon. Hey, then it served its purpose, right? Right?
Oh man, you are making me so angry.
I'm sorry.
Even sarcasm, man. I'm just like, ugh.
So NASA Administrator Jack says that we just need a date. We need a date, and we need to hold it.
Well, it's not just that, like, we need a date. You need a date, and then you need to take that date seriously enough that the downstream effects of that are, throughout the entire program. Like, hey, if we're going to get there by 2030, we have to, build it this way, or we have to sacrifice putting it in a different orbit, or we have to make it, not as nice. I mean, the Apollo program went to the moon and landed. I think of the LEM, and it's like, oh yeah, don't poke that wall. It's basically foil, and it's like, yeah, we should go back with all of the modern technology that we have today and do it right and do it better. But at the same time, like, we don't need to take a freaking Ferrari. Like, let's just go. Can we just go and start doing science, please?
This is one thing that I think. This is where I really think SpaceX's tremendous advantage comes from. Is at the top they have Elon, who, even if you're a little bit late, he gets mad. And when he gets mad, he starts going on these, cost-cutting rampages of getting rid of any inefficiencies that he sees. And sometimes, it does seem like it's probably more than is absolutely necessary. But I really think that kind of helps motivate the employees to an extent that we haven't seen in any other company or any other organization probably since, like, Apollo in the Cold War.
Trevor, my question to you, I mean, you kind of answered it at the end there, dude, but my question to you is, do you think, I mean, there's no reason why NASA wouldn't be able to do something like that. You just need some accountability. And I agree, for what it's worth. Elon running a tight ship like that is why SpaceX is successful.
There's a thing in filmmaking. I always got to go back to putting my film nerd hat on. There's a thing in filmmaking called the auteur theory that is, the director is basically like the king of the movie. All the decisions, everything, like, versus a director that just comes in and is like, hey, yeah, we'll make a movie. I don't really care. Like, having a director with a clear and concise vision who has an opinion and has things to say, like, makes a huge difference in the quality of a film, in my film nerd opinion. But, like, when you think of a director like Steven Spielberg or Stanley Kubrick or or Hitchcock. Like
Yep.
you like the reason that those films are great are because they had a singular vision behind it. It was not like designed by committee, which you know. You want to make things that are a Kubrick film. You don't want to make a Bradley fighting vehicle.
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
I think
yeah,
efficiency is definitely not the government's strong suit in general. Like, right, inherently, because of how Congress works, this NASA's always has to be somewhat inefficient. And the only time that it seems like they've really been able to escape that when we had to show dem Russians who was boss, you know?
Right.
But I definitely agree with Jack. I think a very, very clear vision is needed. And like what EJ was saying, I also just going back to it, I really just don't think that NASA needs to be making rockets at this point. Like, I bet within a decade, SLS is done and the entire return to the moon has been commercialized.
Somebody set a reminder for 10 years from now. I'd be curious to see how that
I'll be
plays out.
honest with you, man. And keep in mind, Trevor, I'm respectfully disagreeing. Nobody can predict the future, but I don't want a corporation having the sole access to the moon. I mean, Jack, we were talking about good movies. Weyland-Yutani, anybody?
Right.
Anybody?
Right.
If you play video games, Altera Corp, Fix
Red
It.
Faction.
Yeah. See what I'm talking about? I don't think that's wise.
That doesn't. That's not necessarily what I'm saying, though. It could still be a NASA program that has just been commercialized, like how they've done with commercial crew or commercial cargo. Just because Dragon and Starliner are the only real ways for the United States to get to the ISS doesn't mean that it's suddenly in the ISS is in corporations' hands.
Yeah, that's. I mean, okay. We're at some point we're going to have both of you fist fight over this, but I don't want to get us too far behind. We've been talking about
how much you weigh
about Gateway for a while now, and we have a bunch of people to thank too, like RC Horseman for gifting 10 Red Team memberships. Thank you, RC. It's extremely generous of you, as usual. It's always coming out with the memberships. Telstar86, another one of those names we see all the time, gifting a Red Team membership, and with a super chat saying, "Only good news we need is the Flight 5 patch." It's not. I heard Chris on the Raptor side the other day teasing it. I'm not even gonna say anything other than the Flight 5 patch exists, and it will come out.
I've seen it.
When
it is a patch, and it is Flight 5.
I have also seen it, and it is good. It slaps. Ninja Decimator. Evan. Hey, Ninja Decimator. Thank you. Well, they're gifting a Red Team membership. Phil933 gifting a Red Team membership. Jim Cavett also gifting a Red Team membership. Make sure you thank the person who gifted you one if you do get a gifted membership. And if you're wondering why, like, oh, I've never gotten one, I think it's like a thing you have to go in your YouTube settings and turn on. So if you've never gotten one, but you're like in chat and interacting, maybe make sure you have like the accept gifts thing turned on. Minor Downfall, thank you for the €5. They say, my American friends, don't worry for the Lunar Gateway. Your EU buddies got this. We have plenty of Ariane 6 if needed. Yeah, but what about that upper stage, though?
What is Ariane 6 going to do?
Probably nothing, but it sounds like they are offering Ariane 6 for gateway purposes.
I don't think there's enough Delta V there, even with the heaviest version, to move PPE and Halo in one shot.
But it was a nice offer.
I appreciate that. Make a better service module, please.
Nicholas North, thank you. Wow, 42 euros.
I'm kidding, guys. I'm kidding.
We have a 42 euro super chat from Nicholas North. It says, why is NASA spending north of 800 million to have SpaceX destroy the ISS when Boeing could have likely done it? Oh my God! I should have read that before I read that. Yeah, thanks, Nick, for the super chat. I think we might have killed it.
That's pretty good, man. Oh damn, God. That got spicy real fast.
Dude, the monotone read, too, it really sold it. Oh, God. Flying Monkey, thank you for the super chat. They say SpaceX is building a Dragon variant to deorbit the... What?
Honk.
Why? What is the purpose of the train horn?
Because I don't know.
Trains are good.
I'm gonna keep acting tough until I figure out what's going on.
Flying Monkey is saying make 2 of the deorbit vehicles and use one to as a backup power module for Gateway. I mean, I do wonder, like it's not going to happen, but I do wonder if we'll ever see the U.S. deorbit vehicle architecture used for anything else ever, or if it's just like a bespoke one-off.
So
Crazy
here's
Space
the
Tug,
thing.
Come on. Who doesn't want a Crazy Space Tug?
Dude, not even a space tug, man. We figure the ISS about 420. That's the mean number. 420 tons. And per a press conference where SpaceX was talking about this, when the contract got awarded and they introduced the vehicle, they said that with the ISS attached at 420 tons, it has about 57 meters a second delta V. So that's taking into account 420 tons dry mass on top of the vehicle dry mass. Rough napkin math, we have that's easily over a kilometer a second delta V if you adjust the formula to not have an ISS attached. That service module could be used for lunar insertion on a Falcon Heavy. Falcon Heavy, yeet that thing out there, and you could use that service module for somewhat of a lunar circularization. Possible with a Dragon. I'm just saying that's pretty good, man. That would be pretty sweet.
That would.
You could do it.
Spirit Wolf with 5 curly L's. They say have a beer on me, EJ.
Yeah, baby. Let's go. It's Friday night.
Steve Kalovic, thank you for the support. They say, can you explain what? I don't even want to start with that. And Gravelly Don, thank you for gifting 5 Red Team memberships. Let's do some questions because we got nice and spicy, but we do have some good questions.
All right.
Shoot. A lot of people are asking why the Artemis program is so complicated. Like Kyler is asking, what's the justification for making it so completely complicated? Orion to lunar orbit, HLS to land, comms, relo, and halo orbit. Why Gateway?
Jack, pick me. Jack, pick me. My hands up. Look, pick
Trevor,
me.
Trevor, what do you think?
Congress is terrible at designing rockets and architecture, and we should leave these decisions up to actual engineers and not politicians who are clueless.
I would rephrase that as Congress is really good at securing contracts for their constituents to ensure re-election. But EJ, sorry, I can see the pain on your face. Go ahead, EJ.
I'm sorry. It was pretty fun. I don't mean to laugh at my own joke. I'm a tool. I get it. All right. So, Trevor, I agree. Congress is terrible at designing rockets, but it's important to understand the context in which SLS exists. SLS existed because the executive branch saw the Constellation program as too expensive at the time. And they said, you know what? Screw all this. Screw the going back to the moon. Screw everything. Just leave it to commercial. Do exactly what you said, Trevor. Just leave it to commercial. It'll be fine. Just leave it to commercial. We don't need any of this. It's too expensive. We're in the middle of a recession. It's bad. It's a bad idea. And Congress looked up and said, oh, the hell, you're going to do that. No, you are not going to do that. And they signed a rocket into law to make our national space program, in-house national space program, basically unkillable by spreading the contracts around. It's important to understand the context of that. I agree with you that Congress is absolutely horrid at designing vehicles. Design by committee is terrible. You have no stakeholder expectation. There's no goals. There's no accountability. There's nothing. That's by design. It's by design because we almost did have just that. We almost had nothing. You guys can say whatever you want. I honestly think, I'd rather have SLS here than not. That is bolstering our aerospace in the spaceflight sector. That is bolstering our industrial base, and it's bolstering our talent. Whether you disagree with that or not, SLS, heavy price tag jobs program, yeah, you're right. You're right. But understand that if that wasn't there, that would be billions of dollars less per year just spent on space in general. And guess what? Guess where all those engineers probably would have ended up if we just did, no, screw it. Don't worry about it.
Party Island?
Defense sector. That's where all the shuttle people went after they pulled the plug on the shuttle program.
Right.
Right? I mean, the day after STS-135, Kennedy Space Center laid off 4,000 people. 4,000 people. That's, yeah, guess what? All right, here, you're out of a job. Here's your pink slip. Bye. You can be dang sure that they all found their way into the defense sector, right? You know, we wonder, you know, everybody says, oh, get rid of SLS, get rid of, I don't think that's a good idea. I really don't. I mean, I'd rather have SLS because, once again, we almost had nothing. So just to recap, I mean, yeah, Congress is awful at designing rockets. They should be budgeting, not designing, right? Totally agree. But the context in which SLS was forged is very important to understand. And I can tend to say it all goes back to canceling Constellation. You could say that Constellation was going to cost too much. There is no way it would have cost as much as this fiasco or whatever the heck this is. There's no way. I mean, you can make the argument that it may. I mean, maybe it would have cost much. I mean, you can't predict the future, right? But also at the same time, at least with the Constellation program, we'd be further than we are now. There's no way we'd be at one launch if we just kept going with the Constellation program. There's no way.
Yeah.
I
agree. No, I agree. Like, the Constellation program we're just doing Constellation 2.0. We would be much further along. I'm not gonna argue, Kevin. You can pressure me with your boxing bell all you want. Good try. Jeremy B wants to know, could we get away from the gateway? A lot of people are like, we ask, like, what's the alternative? Can't we just use Starship? That's what Jeremy wants to know. Just link two Starships together. Bam, there's your Lunar Gateway. With way more space. But that's not really how it works, right? That's not how engineering works. It's not just Lego pieces. Although I sort of wish it was.
They're using a lot of pieces.
Also, yeah.
Yes.
It's not, but also keep in mind all of this architecture was come up with before Starship was even remotely a thing. So the capabilities that Starship has to offer were like a pipe dream at that time. So
yeah,
it's not really surprising that it doesn't take into account that capability.
Yeah. James Meyerhoff is asking, how far are they into the construction of Gateway? Is it too late to do a major course correct? EJ, you were saying this is fixable stuff, right? Like,
yeah,
it's not the end of the world. It's just, it's like we're not mad. We're just disappointed.
Yeah, everything is fixable. I'm sure that like I said, there's always contingent. A good systems engineering design realizes that, you know, during development, you're going to have massive components is going to change. There's going to be a nominal range of components. And a good, well thought out systems engineering takes this into account, that this component might end up being a little bit too heavy. So if this component is too heavy, then we'll get rid of the cup holders. You know what I mean? It's a joke. Or we'll get rid of the airbags or something. Like, pick your option on your car. All right. We'll get rid of the racing stripes. We'll get rid of the spoil. Like, there's
the
good contingent. Yeah, exactly.
Always get rid of the undercoating.
Well, I mean, I'm from the Northeast, man. That's not a good idea. Maybe where you are, you could get away with that. But anyway,
a little bit of rust never hurt anything.
Something Jeeps, something. Anyway, moving on. There's always contingencies, so this can be fixed. But I mean, you can't help but think at this point, like, what I just keep going back to is that there's no way that, you know, it's just going to be fix after fix after fix. You know, after misstep after misstep, because at the end of the day, nobody knows what they're designing for. You don't know what the final design of the art, like, we don't know what all this is going to look like. We built the rocket first, and then we decided to build the lander, which is weird because usually rockets are built around the payloads that they need to launch. The shuttle, Falcon 9. The Falcon 9's fairing is a very specific size for a very specific reason, and that's because of payload constraints, and the entire rocket is designed around that. You usually don't do that. Designing a payload to fit on a rocket, that works in the commercial market, but not so much when you have to push the forefront or build the first lander that we've been trying to build for 50 years to get back to the moon. Like, it always can be fixed, but I can't help but think in the back of my mind that, you know, if we just stayed the course with Constellation, I don't think we'd be, don't get me wrong, there would be problems. Constellation kind of had this same problem, but that was mostly due to underfunding because of the recession. Constellation wasn't performing right in 2008, 2009, 2010, and that was the excuse they had for putting it on the chopping block, underperformance, because they weren't meeting deadlines because they didn't have any money to. So, we would have had to fix that mess. Everything can be fixed, but I can't help but think, like they cancel Constellation under the guise of saving money. There's no way we're saving money right now.
No way.
There's no way this is less expensive. I'm sorry, there isn't. Redesigns, as you get closer, especially after flight hardware has been made, the closer you get to a finished product, the more you redesign, the more expensive it's going to be. Right now, we know there's at least some fabricated components for the PPE and the Halo. So that means they've gone past in systems engineering what's called the critical design review. Any change further and further away from your CDR exponentially costs more money. So yes, it can be fixed. Will they fix it? Most likely. Are we going to get screwed because of it? Yeah, exactly. But it all stems back to, NASA having the rug pulled out from under it and Congress saying, nah, we're not doing that. This infighting is ruining it. You're ruining it. And that's something you don't see with SpaceX, and that's why everybody likes them. Because they don't have that problem. Everybody works together for a common goal. NASA needs to be doing this. This is not rocket science.
But it kind of is.
Slash rant over, man. Damn.
Thank you. No, I wanted you to feel like you had room this week to really just unload on this. So I'm glad you did. I see chat too. Chat loves it. No apologies necessary.
Intense
Let's move on.
Dissatisfaction with this, man. This is it. Viper getting canceled was the last straw. I'm like,
right.
Artemis getting moved out. Okay, yeah, I could see that. Mars sample return needing to be rethought. Yeah, okay, I could get it. Chandra getting pulled. Yeah, I understand it's old.
No, that one pisses me. I hate that
dude,
one. Like,
I was getting to my limit, and then Viper, they're like, yeah, we're gonna cancel it, even though it's finished, and then put a block of concrete on the lander because we're still beholden to contractors to pay them. We just don't want to spend more money because it's gonna interfere with another commercial lunar payload service thing, a probe that's designed to do the exact same thing but actually less. So yeah, we've cost overlap, dude. That's pathetic. Come on, that's pathetic. What? Are you kidding me right now? That was the last straw. I'm done. I'm tired of these snakes on this damn plane. Sorry, I had to say the G-rated.
You know what else is pathetic?
Oh, here we go.
Oh, he did it. He actually did it.
Yes, awesome segue, man.
He actually did it. The mad lad. Trevor, what else is pathetic?
I don't know if pathetic is actually quite the right word. Actually, the one thing that is pathetic has been NASA's communication with the media about what is going on with Starliner. Right, as Jack said at the start of the show, Starliner is still docked to the ISS, and they were able to replicate. Right, they did the thruster firings of 27 of the 28 thrusters or something like that, and it seemed like they were happy with the data. But then all of the sudden, maybe they're not super happy with the data. It's very confusing. So Eric Berger and Michael Sheets have now been reporting that several sources have informed them that they think it is more likely than not that the astronauts will be coming home on Dragon as opposed to Starliner. And all of this kind of just raises the question of, one, why are Boeing and NASA not giving us answers? Right, they've been having all of these press conferences, and they've really been avoiding the question of what contingency plans are you looking into. But then also too, let's take into account that Eric Berger, kind of has a track record with some of these big claims like this, where not always 100% true. Sometimes, information changes. It doesn't matter. So I don't want everyone to go home, all of the SpaceX fanboys to go home and be like, yeah, they're coming home on Dragon. This is such a big win for SpaceX, when this is just not a win. This is a very bad thing for the space program, for Starliner to be having this many problems. So even though I know, Starliner has kind of earned its reputation of being a meme, I think we all need to really hope that they are able to come back on Starliner, and that Starliner is able to continue with operations. The one other thing that Eric Berger did mention in his article, which was a very bold claim in my opinion, is right. The other week, it came out that SpaceX won over $250,000 for a special study for emergency response. NASA was asked if this had to do with the Starliner situation, and I believe NASA denied that it had anything to do with Starliner, or if they didn't deny it, they didn't really comment on it. And then Eric Berger, in his article, explicitly is saying that he has several sources that are saying that the study did, in fact, have something to do with Starliner. So I don't know what's going on. I feel really bad for Butch and Suni in this situation.
No. Like,
spend time in space. I'm pretty
yeah,
sure.
Butch and Sonny get extra time in space. That's like the one positive in all of this. Like, if I were them, I wouldn't be feeling great being in this sort of limbo state. But I have to think that they have way more information than we in the public or the media have regarding.
I mean,
this.
they better.
They better. I certainly would hope that that's the case. But go ahead.
Hold on a second, Jack. This might be newer news, so forgive us, guys. We have a document, and we might, we're a little bit behind the news cycle by, displaced by a few hours. But I'm fairly confident that NSF reached out to NASA, and they said that this contingency procedure is not for Starliner. It's for Tracy Morgan to come back down on a Dragon because they're worried about the coolant leak problems that was encountered with Soyuz a little while back. That's what the contingency is for. I'm pretty confident in this.
Okay.
I don't have any sources. Sorry.
No, but to Trevor's point regarding Eric and Eric's sort of bolder claims sometimes. I mean, this is what happens, right? When you are stonewalled by NASA, the vacuum of information leads to situations like this.
Dude, I don't think they have anything to tell us right now, not because they're withholding information, but because they're not done tracing their fault tree analysis for the for thruster seal degradation. If that was not plain English to anybody, the major the major funny. Let's do a Mike Seraphin. If you know, you know. The major funny that's going on here is the thruster degradation. Because of overheating, because Boeing's thermal model that they used for calculating how much heat they can put into these thrusters before they start having seal degradation on the injectors was off from what was actually encountered. They thought the sun was going to heat it up to this temperature, so if we fire a thruster at full thrust while it's in the sun, it should be fine. Well, guess what? It wasn't fine. What the computer started doing is safing thrusters. They basically blew out the thruster because the thrusters were getting too hot. Now, having a NTO-MMH thruster, so nitrogen tetroxide, monomethyl hydrazine, having those types of thrusters overheat is it's not good, because these thrusters don't really have a active cooling system like you'd see on a regeneratively cooled system, like an RL-10 shuttle motor, Raptor, stuff like that. These things have to find a way to flex the heat out via a passive mechanism, right? Hypergolic propellants are not cold. They're not cryogenics. They're basically at room temperature. Not exactly, but you get the idea. They don't boil off, and that's a plus. But also, overheating, if you put too much heat into these thrusters, I mean, the thruster will shed heat because of the way the nozzle is made. It radiates heat out, like ISS's radiators. They glow. They emissively glow, right? And that's how they get the heat out. But if you start putting too much heat into it, obviously you're going to get nozzle degradation, but you really have to worry about seal degradation because your NTO and MMH is getting too hot. If it gets too hot, it could boil. It could boil inside the lines. That, I don't think I need to say why that would be a bad thing. It's already a pressurized system. You don't need to add to that. And that's why, once again, that's why Starliner's computer was shutting these thrusters off, right? You could boil in the lines. You could get seal degradation. The seal degradation, you could get filter degradation, and this stuff could go downstream and jam something up. There's a lot of things here. There's a lot of variables at play here. And that all stems from Boeing's thermal models not being not what was expected on Starliner. And that, guys, I'll be honest, you can't go and take apart the service module right now. This is a hard problem to figure out. Yeah, Starliner's in a pretty dang passive state when it's attached to the ISS. Like, it's all powered down except for the hot fire test that they did, which that was the hot fire test on the weekend where they fired it while it was attached to the ISS was used to was used for fault tree analysis for the other funny that they're having, which is helium leaks. The helium is leaking more than what they thought, but they seem to have that one on lockdown. But this seemingly thruster degradation is something that you got to figure out. Now, let's be real. Starliner has a lot of thrusters on it. You can Google picture of it right now. There's thrusters all over this thing. Now, they do know a lot about these thrusters. The thrusters are derived from the space shuttle's RCS. The OMAC engines and their smaller thrusters. They have two different types of thrusters on there, and each one is in a doghouse at different positions. There's a lot of thrusters here to compensate for this problem. But remember, this is a test flight, dudes. It's a test flight. You have to... You don't want to let this one slide. You really don't. This is not something you let slide. Letting this seemingly thruster degradation problem, not tracing this fault tree and figuring out exactly what's wrong, and just bringing them home. Not that they could do that right now, no problem. Not doing that and not doing your due diligence now is how you get deviant engineering during operational flights. This was like NASA turning a blind eye to the frigging O-rings in the early 80s. They just said, yeah, it's fine. They made it. It's good. Never bothered doing any validation, any fault tree analysis on O-ring failure. It's just, no, we got a schedule to keep going. No, no, that's bad. Not doing your homework now, I can tend to say, is more dangerous than just bringing them home and, obviously you want to bring them home in one piece, right? But not taking the time to learn and understand this behavior right now could put future missions in huge jeopardy. And look, let's be real, guys. This is where you're just going to get spicy again. There's only a finite window to do these 6 Starliner missions. Clock is ticking. You have till 2030. That's right around the corner in spaceflight. Now is the time to do your homework and get this right. Figure out exactly what's going on. And that's why I don't think we have an answer. Because NASA haven't figured it out. They haven't figured out why they're getting thruster degradation. They haven't figured out why Boeing's thermal models were not as what they expected. That's hard. That's a hard thing to do. That's a hard fault tree to figure out, especially when you have an operational mission happening right now. You can't work on a car's engine when the motor's running. You can't do that. You could.
This is also one big downside of Starliner's design in general is that, right, that service module with all of those thrusters, that's going to burn up on reentry. They don't get any of the thrusters back like they do on Dragon.
Bingo.
So they don't have the opportunity of collecting more data afterward or taking them apart and looking at what's wrong. The only data they're going to get is the data that they're going to get from before it re-enters. So, but with all this said, I'm curious what your guys' gut feelings are. Do you guys, given that we've now heard Sheets and Berger report that there's at least a potential of them coming back on Dragon, are you feeling Starliner return or Dragon return?
Oh,
Starliner. Yeah.
Yeah. My gut is that they come back on Starliner, and I just put a poll in chat. So I'm gonna vote Starliner. But I see the poll. 59% right now saying Dragon, 42% Starliner. It's tough. It's a tough call to make. And I know Eric and I know Michael Sheets, and they're fantastic reporters, and I definitely trust what they're saying and about what they're hearing. I believe we've heard similar. I don't know. I'm gonna go with Starliner. It kind of needs to happen on Starliner unless it's like absolutely not safe.
Jack, I think it's always safe. I think they're taking the time to do the fault tree analysis. Sonny and Butch are test pilots. They understand what's involved here, and they understand what's at stake. And it's their job as test pilots to make sure, along with NASA and Boeing, that this capsule is as safe as possible. That's what you need to get flight certification. You have to figure this stuff out, and I think they know that, which is why I don't think they have a problem being up at the ISS at all. Now, with that being said, what Eric and Mike say, dude, those guys. I don't know those guys. And I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm not trying to rock the boat. Look, man, this is rocket science. It's not what you know. It's what you can prove. All right. How do we know? How can we believe you? You have an anonymous source. And don't get me wrong. I understand there's tips in journalism, and journalists have to report a scoop. I get it. That's how that whole works. I'm not barking up the journalist tree. you can report whatever. I just don't know if I can figure that into my analysis here, because that's a variable. It's a variable that's frankly unsolvable. How will we ever know? You're never going to know who these sources are. They're never going to give them up, right? We're not going to know who these sources are. We're not, and I get it. Eric and Mike are cool. Like I read I read all their articles, dude, because I'm a space nutcase just like they are. But an anonymous source here, I think is rocking the boat for no reason, right? Because it's been abundantly clear, even in all of NASA's press conferences about Starliner, that the astronauts are not at risk. They are not at risk. And they're empirically proving that they're not at risk through this fault tree analysis. Like, Starliner's fine.
I get it. That's like it's a test flight. That's the whole point of a test flight, is you take the time that you need to understand the system so that you can transition to an operational footing. With that said, with any report from any journalist in any field, I always just take it's another data point, right? Like, I don't take anything as gospel. It's interesting to hear what people are hearing, and you take that as a data point. So yeah,
I also think that, like, it's kind of the cool thing to be pro SpaceX, anti Boeing at this point, when you're reporting on it. So, I'm not going to make the claim that I think Berger or Sheets are super biased and that they would, make up or present information that they're not confident in. But I definitely think it kind of creates a little bit, like, it's just sad that there's kind of this idea in the community that people want Starliner to fail. And I kind of wonder how much that has to do with it, But I'm also amazed by how close this poll is in chat right now.
So what are we at?
Basically 50-50.
Wow. I mean, there you go. But I think, Trevor, you're really, like, you're sending it home. Like, none of us wants to see Starliner fail. None of us wants to see the crew have to return on Dragon. We need similar redundancy in our crewed access to the ISS and to space. We need Starliner to be working. I'm thankful that in the information vacuum from NASA, we at least have, a little bit of tricklings of information here and there from Eric and Sheets are hearing it. We're hearing it too. Like, it's out there. It's
not an information vacuum, dude. That's what I'm saying. If you go listen to the press conference, they're pretty straightforward about what they're doing. Like, I'm not trying to be a jerk about this, dude, but I don't think there's an information vacuum. I think I'm kind of with Trevor on this one. I think that people are trying to drum up stuff because it's the trendy thing to have a story, and go against, like, oh, Boeing, they suck, right? They don't. It's the capsule is up there. It's pretty cool, and they're doing their due diligence. I'd be more worried if they said, yeah, whatever, just send them home. I'm sorry, I cannot. I am not happy with the state of Boeing. I will leave it at that. As a company as a whole, like, I can't defend where they're at. Boeing Space isn't Boeing Commercial Airplanes, homie. Those are two different companies.
Yeah, but I think we see problems in both sides of the company that are not dissimilar. That's just my opinion.
I want to say one thing. I think in silence, a whisper is very loud. And I think a journalist may be hearing grumblings, or they're the whispers. And I think part of the problem here is NASA is telling us what is happening, right? And Boeing is telling us what is happening, but they're only giving us as little information as possible. And and in that whisper becomes so loud because and everybody's kind of hearing those whispers.
I think the other big problem is NASA needs to kind of address this at some of the press conferences, right? They could come out and say, if what Berger and Sheets are reporting is false, they really should come out and say this is not true. We are fully confident that Starliner is able to return safely. In the event, right? So far, they've only said this, that Starliner can return in the event of an emergency, or something like this. And I don't know, the communication from NASA just has not been ideal. And I think that's definitely a fair criticism of NASA. But I don't know, this is going to be a very interesting situation to see. And I think we're going to learn a lot more in the coming weeks.
All right, so question time. Theoretical if the crew does return on a Dragon instead of Starliner, does the Starliner program even continue?
Look, man, ain't nobody gonna convince me that right now for a bolstering commercial low Earth orbit economy, consolidation is a good idea. That's stupid. Straight up. No, it will not spell the end of Starliner. I don't think that's a good idea. We're not. What was I saying about infighting, guys? I mean, Trevor, you pointed out you see this infighting between people that want both capsules that understand redundant dissimilarity, like what Jack was saying earlier, and you get these other people that say, "Oh, it should just be Dragon all the time." Putting all your eggs in one basket didn't work in 1986, and it's not going to work now. That's not a good idea. I'm sorry, it's just not. And don't get me wrong, it probably will be fine. The O-rings will probably be fine. The spray-on foam insulation, permeation, crack permeation because of tanking and detanking the external tank, and foam has come off other external tanks before. It'll probably be fine. That's right. No. That's Bush League, dude. No way. We need to bolster that. We should be championing these programs. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to turn a blind eye to Boeing. They need to get that stuff figured out. And frankly, from what I understand, they had these problems on OFT2 as well. So what the heck, guys? Like, I'm not trying to sit here to run cover for Boeing. Fix your damn capsule. This is ridiculous. The way they do their testing, the waterfall style testing that Boeing does, the final test flight should be like a final exam for school. I.e., you don't want to learn anything from your final test, but yet here we are. Right. Guys, don't get confused. I'm not trying to run cover for Boeing, but I do believe that we need dissimilar architecture in our commercial low Earth orbit economy. You don't want to try to open up a new avenue for economic gain here and stifle it before it's even grown. You don't try to pull a tomato before it's not ripe. It's ridiculous.
Nice callback, because you're growing tomatoes.
Yeah, baby.
I appreciate that. Oh man, I mean. Yeah, really quickly, Mighty Don, thank you for the 5 Red Team membership gift. And Musical Wolves, thank you for the super chat. They say, is Starliner causing next crew launch to delay? No, I don't think so.
No, they talked, actually, in the press conference that was just being shown there, they did talk about schedule flux. They're going to use as much allotted time for Starliner here while they have some downtime for ISS operations to and from. Obviously, we got Cygnus coming soon, but that's not really going to take up a docking port. Cygnus uses a common berthing mechanism. Right. Starliner and Dragon use the NDS, the International Docking System Standard, a NASA docking system. So that's not really going to interfere with operations. But by the time Crew 9 comes around towards the end of the summer, you're going to have to vacate. NASA says there's a little bit of leeway in their scheduling for manifested operations to and from the ISS, but you don't want to go too far in one direction or the other. NASA ideally said that they wish for a crew overlap between Crew 8 and Crew 9, so you have some overlap period where both of the crews are up there, and you need both docking ports to do that. So Starliner needs to skedaddle by the time Crew 9 gets ready to go.
Got it.
The
Spirit Wolf.
The other.
Go ahead.
The one other thing I'll add to that question is, in case they're talking about launches down the line, like where Starliner 1 was supposed to launch, right? They've pushed Starliner 1 back to no earlier than like August of next year, if I remember correctly. And so what they're basically doing is right now is they're double booking Starliner and Dragon so that they make sure that Dragon is ready if Starliner is not available, so that Dragon can keep sending crew to the ISS while Starliner works on whatever problems they'll need to address following this test flight.
Got it. And another super chat from Spirit Wolf. They say, I should also add a beer for Jack, Kevin, and Trevor. Thank you so much, Spirit Wolf. That's super generous. You should also add a beer for Chris B, NASA Spaceflight Actual, who has jumped in to share their thoughts, RE Starliner, and the entire situation. Chris, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I'm hot and tired, but this is a really interesting conversation. I'm actually loving it because we're not all like agreeing with each other. And that's the last thing you need because this is a subject that really needs dealing with. I want to bring some context. I remember we went through 30 years where the only US domestic crew launch vehicle was a space shuttle. And when we lost Columbia, it was Soyuz that was transporting American astronauts up and down. And as after per shuttle, it was Soyuz that was transporting US astronauts up and down. And they said that when we get a commercial crew provider, we will have to have, as EJ said, dissimilar redundancy. And there was actually 3 good options in the end. Dream Chaser was pretty much stolen out of the competition. Unfairly, in my opinion, and to the point that I can bag that up because they actually protested it legally, protested it against NASA for missing out on what was CC Dev to CC Cap. That was the award process. Now that was proper dissimilar redundancy, having Dream Chaser and Dragon or Starliner in the mix because one of them comes down for a splashdown, one of them comes down on land on airbags, and the other one comes down on runway. There's your dissimilar redundancy. The problem we've got right now is if we all start banging the SpaceX drum and saying we're only going to use Dragon from now on because Starliner doesn't work, it's going to be a real problem if Dragon has a problem because we'll be back to looking at Soyuz again. So we don't want to go back into the context of history where we're completely relying on one vehicle. We have to root for Starliner. It sounds crazy, and I don't care what people say about Boeing. You know, a lot of it's because of the airplane, just got nothing to do with anything as far as the spacecraft operations go. But we should be rooting for Starliner. We should be rooting for Dream Chaser CRS to have some missions under its bag and maybe win an award if it's even worth it for ISS extension purposes, because we know the ISS is coming down before long, to have a crew Dream Chaser because it's the same outer mode line, it's the same kind of vehicle. Sierra Space, so they call themselves now, said they literally have to add life support into the system and put windows in it on the vehicle they're using for cargo, so they could easily make it a crew vehicle. So, yeah, I mean, that was what's really rattling me was the fact that there is a lot out there. I mean, it's right, Jack's right, and everyone's right, saying we are hearing the same things. We're hearing what's being reported. I think we're being a bit more careful because when we did note, and we carefully noted it 2 weeks ago, the fact that there was a study that was initiated, ironically, at around the time that they were having these concerns about Starliner coming back, about a study of bringing them back on a Dragon. And we put it out on X, and I got an email from NASA headquarters out of the blue 30 minutes later with a statement saying this is not about Starliner. Now, either they're lying or they're basically saying, hang on a minute, this is getting out of control. We're actually doing studies all the time, and that's fair enough. You have to take NASA. You can't then say, NASA said this, but we don't believe them. You can't do that. You just can't do that as journalists. That's just a complete suicidal thing to do if you're going to do that. The problem is that's where everything's churning up, and the test results from last weekend's test of the thrusters will be in a deep dive right now, and there'll be deep dive into test results at White Sands, and they'll be working it out. And I guarantee you, I bet it's about 95% they're fine with everything. But NASA, because of the shuttle disasters they've had, will not risk that 5% with a crewed mission. And that's what the only thing will come is where Dragon brings them back home is because there's that small chance there's an issue with the thrusters bringing them back. A very, very small chance. A very, very small chance. Starliner's not broken. It's just got a few issues that they have to make sure that they cross all the T's and dot all the I's because it's crew safety. NASA's lost 14 astronauts with the space shuttle program. They're not going to risk it anything close to that again with their vehicles from now on. So that's where I think we stand. I might have gone long-winded and down a rabbit hole there, but that's what I want to say about it.
No, Chris, you're absolutely right, dude. Because, hey, dude, look at you were watching these press conferences. Who's hosting the press conferences? Steve Stitch. Where was he in 2003?
Yes.
He knows this stuff firsthand. The guy that runs Commercial Crew Program was there when Columbia popped. Trust me, he ain't going to make that mistake.
EJ,
No way.
you probably know this story. A lot of the NASA guys who are still there and now working Commercial Crew, I know of a few places where they say in the office they have a photograph of the STS-107 crew on their wall to remind them every single day.
And I think that's the reason why it's driving such a lengthy fault tree analysis with Starliner. That's the reason. You do not want to roll the dice with something like this. With unknown behavior, don't do that. It's a test flight. Now's the time to do your due diligence and figure out what's going on. turning a blind eye to this and just bringing him home for some type of some type of guise for public relations is absurd. That's actually not as safe as figuring this out. I'm dead serious about that.
All right. Well, we do have some questions coming through. Chris, feel free to hang out if you want.
I didn't even look at the screen. I just realised I'm a horse.
Are you
Why the long
surprised?
face?
It's a very
Are you
nice
honestly
horse.
Surprised?
I must admit,
We
it's
have
a
a
very
question.
nice horse.
We have a question here from EJ_SA, whoever that is. They're saying, "Hey, Chris, why the long face?"
Here we go. Love listening to that.
Sorry. Sawyer isn't here. I had to, man.
Astro Knucklehead, thanks for gifting a Red Team membership. Squig, thank you for gifting a Red Team membership. Mighty Don Don gifting 10, thank you so much. Spirit Wolf, they say I should just drive down with a flat tenants for him, but he can have an ice beer too. There you go, Chris. You're allowed to have an ice beer too. Oh, we have like that's in the, never mind. And I saw something in the back channel and got excited. And Linda Moody, thank you for becoming a Padrat member. Awesome. Let's do a couple Starliner questions, and then we'll talk about some happier topics. How about?
I'm having a good time. I don't know, dude. I'm just saying. I love this.
Oh no,
I'm
all for some spirited discussion.
Day, right? Yeah, but this is great. I'm having a great time.
EJ, are you more of a Roja or a Verde salsa kind of guy?
Verde.
Verde? You're a Verde guy, really?
I mean, I'll have either, dude. To be honest, but
all right, that's fair.
Get some salsa verde with some eggs.
Okay, well with eggs, I'll give you that. Chris, red or green salsa? Because British people famously love salsa, right?
Well, you would like tomato ketchup. That's probably the nearest thing to red and spicy. Anything more spicy than tomato ketchup, and it's kind of like, no,
Did
we're
you
not
just
built
describe
for it.
ketchup as spicy?
Yeah,
I mean,
it is. It's got a tang to it. Come on. I mean, remember, I'm English. Anything that's not beige is kind of like risky.
Trevor, red or green salsa?
Red for sure.
I'm team red also. Here's one from Ptolemy 332, asking, should Butch and Sunny return on a Dragon? How will the suits work? Are the SpaceX IVA suits required for Dragon flight due to systems integration, or are Boeing suits fine? I think it's common. I think they have a common connection for ECLS and whatnot. I'm not sure about comms, but I think they do have a common
Say
common
that one more time.
How should Butch and Sunny return on Dragon? How will suits work? Are the SpaceX IVA suits required for Dragon flight due to systems integration, or are Boeing suits fine? Like, if they do return on a Dragon, hypothetically, can they wear the suits that they wore up on on the Starliner, or do they have to switch suits?
Let me just put it to you like this way. I'm going to put it to you like this. That's probably the least of your worries. Trying to do a manifested crew, like a manifested crew change like that. Yeah. Where are you getting the seats from, by the way? Their spacesuits will probably jive well. And knowing NASA, they have some sort of standardization in fittings. If I had to guess, there's probably some standardization. There's standardization on the docking ports. Let's see why not, right? Let's just go off the contingent that where are you getting the seats? Dragon only has 4 seats in it. So what are we going to do here? Are we going to just leave 2 people on the ISS so Butch and Sunny can come home? Now you're creating a feedback loop of overlapping
like a ripple effect.
Crew manifests. That won't screw anything up, right?
All right,
Well, hey, Kyler, I'm having a conversation with a viewer in the NSF chat. Kyler's saying, like, well, could they return Starliner with no people on it? Well, yeah, of course you could, but you got to remember that you guys got to go back to understand what this fault tree analysis means. They could always come home, but Trevor pointed out a little bit earlier, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to try and trace this fault tree when you don't have the service module. The service module that's malfunctioning doesn't exist because it re-entered. They're not up there because they're stranded. Get that idea out of your mind, right? That's not what's going on here. Fault tree analysis like this delays missions all the time. It happened with DM2 when Bob and Doug were up there. They delayed. It was for another reason, but this stuff happens.
I don't think that's a fair comparison. the DM2 mission was extended because they wanted additional time on station, just because they wanted to wait for the Crew 1 capsule to be ready.
Yeah.
They wanted the additional work on the ISS, not because Dragon was having any substantial problem or they had needed more time to collect data or not.
Yeah.
I definitely think that's a false equivalence.
Yeah, okay. You could, I'll give that one to you. That's fine. I mean, but dude, there have been test flights where the schedule has been in flux. I mean, and the ISS always has some leeway in schedules too, right? I mean, DM2 notwithstanding, guys, they have time till Crew 9. So what's the rush? Figure this problem out. They could always come home. That was never a problem. And Kyler, if you think about it from that point of view, like, you know, sending the capsule home unmanned just to be absolutely sure is a hammer hitting a screw. That's you're not using you're not doing the right thing to solve your problem of why you're getting thruster seal degradation. That doesn't answer any questions. See what I'm talking about here? You got to understand that. You got to understand how NASA goes about analyzing like risk adversity and how they go about doing fault tree analysis. This is really important. The whole thing is based off the premise that they could bring them home, but they have leeway time right now before Crew 9 comes up, so you might as well sit there and make sure that you get this right. You don't want to launch another one and have the same exact problem, you know, because you don't know what that failure mode could lead to. Just like, I'll talk about the shuttle again real quick. Everybody knows Challenger for the O-rings. The O-rings aren't what got STS-51L. No. If you read the Challenger the Rogers Commission, the Challenger accident report, that's not what got Challenger. It's not that the O-rings blew up the stack. And unfortunately, we lost 7 souls, which just, I mean, that sucks, right? It's a catastrophic misstep in spaceflight, right? But that's not what happened. What happened is Challenger launched with 2 launch constraint violations on January 28th. It was too cold for the O-rings, and they did fail, which was known. They knew that was going to happen. But what they didn't realize is that there was also a vertical wind shear. The upper level winds were too high. And what got Challenger and what kind of screwed the space shuttle program back then was not that they knew the O-rings could fail, but they didn't know what could come from that failure mode. You didn't do any analysis on vertical wind shear on a failed O-ring segment, in a cold condition. The wind is what got it. Not
a lot of
the
people
O-ring.
don't know that it sealed. It burned through and then sealed, and then it got hit by wind shear, and that's what I say this a lot. Unfortunately, both shuttle accidents, arguably, you could say they were the ultimate cause or initiating event was wind shear. Same with Columbia as well.
Ultimately, it was a management failure. It was go fever. They should never have launched in those conditions. It was the coldest Florida morning ever for a launch, and they knew the risk of the O-rings, but it should have blown up on a pad. It should have blown up at ignition. And the debris of the O-ring plugged, and then the wind shear got it. It was just unbelievably bad scenarios.
But wasn't the launch fever on that mission especially bad because there was like a presidential State of the Union or something?
Yeah.
Yep.
Reagan wanted to say there's a teacher in space.
Yep.
Yeah, this is just why politics is just so dumb and has no place in spaceflight for stuff like that.
Agreed. Trevor, what's your opinion on the Apollo program then, boys? What was that?
Bros, we got more topics here.
This is great. This is a good conversation. Let's keep it going.
Oh my God. You have to bring politics into it because that's how you get funding.
Yeah.
But it's also the poison that you give yourself and hope that you're building up your immunity to iocane powder. Inconceivable.
They're conjoined at the hip, dude. They're conjoined at the hip.
I mean, Challenger is just like the clearest example of why we definitely need to limit political influence. But anyway, we should move on to
topics. Because we have more topics. I'll take this next one. The Nancy Grace Roman telescope is due. No, it's on time and it's on budget. Look, we have a happy news item this week. Nancy Grace Roman is a next generation telescope. It's like a wide field Hubble. It's got a almost 8-foot primary mirror, and it is on budget and on schedule and is slated to launch in May 2027 on a Falcon Heavy. Yay!
Yay.
All right,
I have no
I
complaints
don't know anything about telescopes, but yay.
my bit was going to be, yay. All right, now let's talk about Starship. Because I mean, like, what? Does anybody have anything else on Roman that they want to hit? I'm super excited for it. More telescopes, more better. Let's frickin' go! And it's super nice that there is a thing that NASA can do that is on budget and on time. Hooray! This is like what Trevor was talking about earlier. With, this is NASA's bread and butter these days. This is the sort of thing that NASA is really like demonstrating its value to the American public and to the world with the science that they can do.
All right, I'm going to be a jerk. It's easy to have something on time and ahead of schedule when the DoD gives you the damn satellite.
I mean, yeah, this was one of the 2 telescopes that the NRO was like, hey, we have 2 telescopes, NASA, you want them. Is this one of those from that whole deal?
Yeah, exactly. And they gave them to him, and for the longest time, there wasn't any funding to get Roman off the ground. One of the smartest things that the previous NASA administrator, Jim Bridenstine, did was put a name on this satellite, because it sounds worse when you cancel a satellite that's named after a person. Yeah. That was really smart. That was a really good move by him to get this thing, get this project going, giving that satellite a name, giving it a name. That's what, arguably, I mean, that and the DoD giving them the damn satellite. That's one of the reasons why this mission. Yeah, me too, man.
I do. Now I want Diet Mountain Dew.
Yeah, almost showing up to a Senate subcommittee meeting with Diet Mountain Dew.
I mean, wouldn't we all? Who amongst us?
I'd do it, man. I'm not gonna lie. That's awesome. It's so funny.
But yeah, no, I completely forgot the NRO origins of this telescope. It's pretty hilarious that they're just like, hey, you want this sweet telescope that is for us completely out of date, and we don't, we're just not even going to bother to launch or do anything with. And NASA's like, yes, please, thank you. It's kind of wild. I've tried to explain to people in the past, who are like, oh, why do we spend money on space or this or that? And it's like, NASA's budget is just a percentage of a percent of the overall budget. When you look at the defense budget, we have so many spy satellites that are basically like super Hubbles or Hubble equivalent sized things looking at the Earth and doing spooky stuff. And we should have more satellites that are Hubbles looking like we have one Hubble. One. How many spy satellites do we have? How many hexagon or keyhole satellites do we have? The Hubble's mirror was sized the way that it was because there was already manufacturing capacity for that size mirror, because the NRO was using those mirrors on spy satellites. So this is good. I'm happy about this.
You know what the crazy thing is, dude? Everybody says, "Oh, if NASA had the military budget, like the U.S. military's budget is like 12 to 13% of our total gross domestic product, like that. Yeah, or not insane. GDP. It's 12 to 13% of our budget. I think this only shows that this only reinforces it. Like, oh, your theory, like, oh, NASA should have the DoD's budget. No. Look what the DoD. Like, how much of that 12% is going to spy satellites, right? I mean, you could argue a certain margin, but it's not the entire 12%. I think this reinforces your argument that, dude, at the end of the day, spaceflight is not that expensive. At least for the U.S. government. It's not expensive for Uncle Sam. I mean, let's say out of that 12%, a percentage of it goes to DoD making spy satellites. They just have, and they just say, oh, look at all these spy satellites I have. Geez, oh, here, you want one? Like, that could show you right there. I mean, not the part that they just have extras, but that could show you right there just what a small bump in NASA funding could do. It's ridiculous.
Didn't I hear, EJ? I don't know if this is correct or not. Someone told me, it was probably a while ago as well, so I don't know if it still applies, but NASA, the cost of NASA to the US taxpayer is it's half a cent. It's half a cent in your tax dollars for all of NASA.
For every tax dollar that you pay, 0.45. So like a half a penny, less than half a penny goes to NASA.
Yeah, and I'm definitely, I'm not saying, go ahead.
No.
I'm just,
damn it.
Yeah.
I was muted for that transition. I'm sorry, chat.
Do you want to try it again? We can rewind it. We can rewind it.
Sure,
You can
let's
try it
go
again.
back. I was going to say, speaking of people being crabby, crabs at Starbase, I don't know.
Why did we give you transition duty? Can we not? Can we? Like, I think we.
It
I think
seemed
we
entertaining.
I think we need to revoke your your transition duties. Anyway, yeah, that was Roman. Let's talk about Starship. Crabs are invading Starbase. Crabs are everywhere. They're in the trees. They're in the bays. They're literally everywhere. You cannot escape the crabs.
I'm so glad I'm not down there. Crabs are just nasty things.
No, they're actually surprisingly docile. So I have like a dry erase marker that I carry around with me for reasons, and I was like trying to get the crab, a crab of the many thousands, to like hold the dry erase marker, so I could take a picture and be like, haha, he's right. He thinks he's people. The crab would not pinch. I could not get the crab claw to pinch on the dry erase marker. It just was like, nah, dude, leave me alone. And then I tried for like 5 seconds and was like, okay, I feel bad. I will leave you alone, crab. So yeah, they're pretty docile, Trevor. Like, they'll leave you alone. You can see they flee from the dog. They flee from people in cars. Like, the only reason they were still moving right then in this video is because I was not. It's like they forgot I was there. It's fine.
Nope, they're horrible.
You're so mean. They're cute little crabby guys. Come on.
What do you think
Nope.
about lobsters, Trevor?
Disgusting. How do people look at those things and be like, I want to eat that?
I don't know.
I mean,
dude. I'm not.
Those are
I'm
selfish
really-
people. Sorry, I'm doing my Sawyer impression.
That was fun.
Wow.
Anything
Chris.
that lives in water is just disgusting. That's my hot take.
Well, this is just Trevor's L's. This is the segment of the show where Trevor just showcases his various L takes. But no, let's really talk about what's going on in Starbase. I mean, yes, there are crabs, but Ryan, does Ryan exist?
Hi, hello. How's it going?
Hi, Ryan.
Hi.
Give us the old Starbase rundown. I feel so weird asking you this because I'm here.
You're the one that's there.
Yeah, right.
Here, let me tell you about where you are.
Yeah.
No, go
Right.
for it. I'm all ears.
Okay, so yeah, Ship 30's at Sanchez for whatever reason. I guess SpaceX just isn't done with Mega Bay 2 yet because I mean at this point I just don't know why they
Seems
just
like they're doing a whole bunch of heat shield work on it. Just like lifts up on it constantly, multiple lifts. That's not Ship 30, Kevin. That's 14.1.
well the picture
That's Ryan.
that I have up there. Yeah, that's 30. But it's me, but whatever. Anyways, at this point, SpaceX has actually added more tiles to the bottom of the forward flaps and some more gap filler material. So they are still doing more work to it. Yeah, and there's been so much work on the chopsticks. It's kind of interesting. There is
All the actuator replacements.
Yeah, all the landing rail actuator replacements, the actuator itself. The one that wasn't replaced, it looks like they're upgrading. So maybe, possibly, some more slap testing. Maybe one of those full-on where both arms close in and go up. I mean, I hope they do a road closure again because I want to stream that again. That was a whole lot of fun.
When they did the slap testing, I was traveling. I think that was when I was in New Zealand. Do we know if the test tank was pressurized when they did that?
Yeah, they had it hooked up to a press line, so they had it pressurized when they were clapping it. My guess is they had it pressurized to what like a booster would be when it's coming back when it's getting caught. So I hope they do like a road closure and stuff for that again. It'll be really cool to do that. Maybe they do both arms at once and in one full motion where they bring both in, slap the tank, and then bring the arms up and compress the rails.
This is an awesome shot, Jack.
Oh yeah, this is amazing.
Thanks. I'd set 2 separate cameras in case one got it better than the other, and it turns out one did get it better than the other.
Narrator.
I've been dreaming of that shot since we saw this stand.
I love the new stand. It's
Yeah,
Isn't it called a crab stand?
that's what I'm
It's a
calling
head
it now. given that its return to the launch site has also seen like tsunamis of crabs. It's as far as I'm concerned, it's the crab stand. But yeah, I mean, 30's back at the production site. They're working on the heat shield. Booster 12 has gotten its hot stage ring. They're working on Booster 15. Keep stacking that. They've stacked the 6th module.
Yeah, there's a lot of.
Or sorry, they stacked the 5th module. The 6th is waiting to be stacked.
They're hooking up to it now.
But the big ticket item this week is the tiered environmental assessment. This is where SpaceX is requesting to bump the number of launches they can do a year from 5 to 25. Is that what's going on?
So they can do 10 launches and 5 landings right now. They want to bump it up to 25 launches of Starship and Super Heavy and 50 landings. So 25 Starships, 25 boosters, basically. So they want to be able to bring everything back. That also includes a single nighttime launch for a year, which is kind of depressing. Only a single one, but
hey! I've been saying this whole time that as a photographer, I cannot wait for the first nighttime Starship launch. And yes, I saw a lot of people were bummed that this is requesting only one per year. I don't care. One is more than none, baby. Like, let's go. Let's go.
It's gonna go right into fog and clouds, right?
Stop it, Trevor. Why are you the way you are?
I'm just preparing everyone for disappointment.
Anyways, Ryan, what else is going on in this EA?
So in this EA, a lot of it was basically rumored or like talked about information that's now more or less confirmed. It's reiterated the 35 engine booster design that was in the LC-39A EIS proposal. 9 engine Starship, your lovely Block 3 Starship that's an 80 meter booster with a 70 meter tall Starship, which I just don't want to see it. Just please go back to 12 meter wide. Just go back to ITS, please. Just go back to ITS. I think everyone will be happier for that. And then of course your ridiculous thrust numbers, which make Starship. That's just kind of ridiculous. You look
this isn't going to happen. But how stoked would you be if whenever we finally see the launch mount for Pad B, it's like some sort of variable diameter? It's like, oh yeah, it can clamp onto a 9 meter booster, it can clamp onto a 12 meter booster. Who cares?
Here's the problem with that is the base they built, the Star Factory they built, all the tooling they built, everything is 9 meters. They'd have
Which
to
is why
change
I
it
said
all.
It's not going to happen. But how stoked would you be if you did?
Oh, it'd be really cool. A variable sized launch mount. I mean, can you imagine the engineering required to do that for the most powerful rocket in history?
No, and you can't make me.
Here I am over here, fellas, just kind of hoping that the second pad will have a flame trench.
That's what it's looking like.
Yeah, that'd be pretty sweet. Ryan, did you see the part? Sorry, I don't mean to interject. Ryan, did you see the part where they talk about Starship safing procedures post landing? Did you see that part? Have you seen?
Yeah,
Have you heard about it?
the landing of the Starship and then breaking it over horizontal.
The breakover procedure.
Yeah,
dude.
I was like,
what's that about? Dude, tell them about it, please, for me.
They've been talking about landing stuff on drone ships. Like they've had it in the new EIS proposal. They've had it in this tiered environmental assessment. They had it in the original EISs and everything else. They've always talked about landing Starship or Super Heavy on a drone ship. They've always talked about it, but it's always been one of those. Well, how? Well, landing legs? Well, as of right now, Starship isn't going to have landing legs, at least not current variants. I mean, when you go to Mars and the Moon, you kind of need them. I mean,
no, you don't. Come
no,
on.
Okay,
come on.
But my question is how is this breakover? How would this breakover fixture work? So you land it, and then what? Does this massive fixture roll out like an octograbber, hook up to the bottom of a ship, and then tip it over?
Well, dude, this is the only really reference of a breakover for a rocket this big that I can think of. Blue Origin has one of those things.
Speaking of which, on our fleet cam on Space Coast Live, I mean that is
plug.
for an 8. I mean, because it's hooking up to the engine section, which I'm pretty sure the engine section is 8 meters. So, like, what, something of that size sitting on a barge, or it'd be bigger than that, but Starship would have to land on it and hook up to it, and then be tipped over.
I mean, that'd be... Guys, okay, so just for reference here, a breakover fixture is basically a processing stool that you could put a big rocket on, and breakover implies that you're taking the rocket from vertical to horizontal. It's something that you use to deverticate, industry term. It's not. A vehicle, usually used in safing procedures.
I'd also accept horizontalify, but
horizontalify, yeah. Yep. That's the superosity in the horizontification is quite nice. But anyway, so yeah, that basically what we're going to see is starships just rolling around on their belly, which, you know what, I'm kind of here for, because that means, that opens up the door to having Starship OPFs. And you know what? I want this. You know what, chat? You want this.
Yeah.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Chris, I know you want it.
In the past, I would have thought it a little bit kind of iffy with regards to the structural integrity of this vehicle, but they have added so many more stringers as they keep going along. Like,
add more struts.
Block 2's aft section.
101.
Block 2's aft section has gone up by 50% in terms of the amount of stringers it has. Just that's the aft skirt. Like, it was booster 10 to 11. They added a decent amount of stringers to the methane tank on that thing. Like, they have increased the structural integrity of this vehicle again and again and again. And your question is why? Because you go back and watch Flight 1, you see that thing tumble over again and again and again. You think, oh, they don't need any more structural integrity. But the vehicles that flew on that mission compared to what they have now, there is so much more structural integrity built into this thing, and they're far more advanced now too. But it's impressive.
Also, there was no payload, so
too.
No loads associated with a heavy payload up there.
I mean, breakover is a good idea, Ryan. It's the same thing that you said, dude. You said, like, if they landed on a barge or something, right? But I personally think that, that might be a component that we see in the future, right? But I think this breakover procedure is for transport purposes, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
We're obviously going to see Starship launches at the Cape, but Roberts Road is nowhere near finished. Starbase is going to be, the Star Factory is going to be done up and running way before that. I mean, it's already running right now, right? So I think this breakover might be something that SpaceX might be designing into their systems engineering to be able to move Starships between launch sites. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I kind of wish they would do that point to point, but for right now, that's still pretty cool.
Hopefully we do get it to a future where they can do that point to point, because I know that would make Crispy happy. Crispy, are you still there?
Yeah, it's the best thing ever. It really is. It's the future. It's going to decimate the airline industry. It's going to be the future, boys and girls. It's what sci-fi promised us.
So
it's some Tintin stuff, man. We need this.
Moving ships point to point, like launching Starship Super Heavy, ship goes into orbit, you line it up with KSC, land it there, and sure. Booster, you need to transport it. You can't launch it and land it at the Cape. That won't work. There's actually, well, let's say this. What if you stuck I'm thinking to myself, what if you put like a nose cone on top of Super Heavy and you launched it towards KSC? Could you get it there?
Stop it.
You might be able to.
Stop it.
I mean,
it's so cursed. But
maybe.
Yeah, I feel like we've heard about things getting barged from Starbase to Kennedy. I mean, right now, all we've ever seen is equipment and hardware from Kennedy get barged to Starbase. But if they actually can figure out this breakover thing and actually do horizontal instead of vertical transportation of these systems, then that opens the path to building them in Starbase, transporting them to Florida via barge, and then maybe they do build a star factory for Starship at Roberts Road at some point. But until that point, how else are they going to get?
I think that a seaway between Brownsville and Titusville is absolutely something that SpaceX is looking to kind of get up and running, dude, for sure. I mean, why wouldn't you? You have the turning basin, you have the locks at SR 401 at Port Canaveral. You already have the infrastructure's already there, but it's already all there for moving large diameter rockets horizontally, right? So instead of trying to reinvent the wheel and find other weird ways to get there, it makes tons more sense just to figure out a way to turn Starship on its side. I mean, these tanks are structurally integral while they're not under pressure. It shouldn't have any problems tipping it over. And as Ryan said, they stringered the heck out of the inside of that thing.
Stringered. That's like a...
Yep. That's your horizontalificationality word of the day.
Can I just bring up that actually we did ask, because there was a lot of debate about how they could transport these vehicles horizontally and then take them to the Cape. But Elon did reply. This is going back a few years now, so again, things change all the time. But Elon did reply when I asked him. I said, "How would you get these vehicles from Starbase to the Cape?" He said, "By barge. We'd barge from Port of Brownsville to the Cape." He said. He literally replied to me on a tweet for that.
And you would need to do it horizontally. I mean, because trying to move these things vertically across the Gulf, it's 50 meters tall. I mean, you can add weights to the bottom and try to balance it out, but it'd be far more stable if you were to just lay it down on its side. Same thing with like try to move a 70-meter tall booster across the Gulf of Mexico, like vertically. I don't know. That's way too risky for me. That's why I would say that you have to do that horizontal.
Yeah,
but wouldn't it look really
never
cool?
Transporting boosters.
It would look.
Yeah, it would look amazing.
It would.
I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I mean, it would. I think the case for horizontalificationality. I think that also would be really cool. I mean, you're telling me you don't want to see a super heavy and an SLS core stage both on their sides in the transfer aisle and the VAB.
I want
I'm kind
that.
of here for that. I'm kind of here for it.
I do want that. Give me that injected directly into my veins, please.
Kind of here for it, dude.
Yeah. And I've been calling Starship in particular like a demented chrome space penguin or whale for a long time now. It was a couple years. A horizontal one would just solidify its weird cyberpunk whaleness. So I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I'm also here for our members, Apocalypse Cow. Apocalypse Cow, that's Danger Moo. Chris, I'm stealing your line.
Fine. It's worth it.
Gifting 10 Red Team memberships. Thank you, Apocalypse Cow. Flawed Perspective with a super chat. They say, fun to buy Trevor lobster butter. Yes, absolutely. Needs to happen.
Butter?
What on earth is that? Butter made from lobster fat?
Sure, why not?
Wow.
It's probably
good, man.
It's probably
you can't hate it if you haven't tried it, Trevor. And I know you haven't tried seafood. I can tell just by the way you talk.
There you go. He's got you there. Telstar86. They say people need to stop being so shellfish.
Hey.
And and Astro Knucklehead. Thank you for gifting a Red Team membership. That was a week, you guys. That was certainly an entire week of show that we just did. Thank you to our launch directors and
it's over?
Our flight engineers. I mean, do you want me to not? You can keep going.
Oh no,
You need food.
You can. Yeah, I'm hungry. Yeah,
but not seafood.
But yeah, thank you to our launch directors and flight engineers. We say this all the time, and we say it because it's true, and we mean it. The Membies mean the most, because we could not do what we do without you guys, especially the launch directors and flight engineers who come through every month with a huge amount of support. There's the vagaries of the YouTube algorithm. You never know when a video is going to do great or a video is going to do bad, but the membership program allows us to know like how we're doing each month and plan things and do things that we want to do because we believe they should be done, not because we think the YouTube algorithm's going to bless this video, it'll do great, we'll make 1 million clicks. That's what we do here. We make clicks, right?
Yeah, absolutely, dude. I think we need to go through and we need to say all these people's names to till the end of the flame tread.
Oh, man.
I'm gonna do it.
I can't even read
No,
them.
guys. I'll try to do it as fast as possible. Ready? There you go. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, it's just a high frequency audio burst. If you
Thank you,
slow it
guys.
down enough,
Kind of
you'll
like
hear-
reading the what was it, like the term service or what are those called? You know, just
Yeah,
man.
like the things at the end of the commercial where it's like some restrictions may apply.
Yeah, so the restrictions may apply. It goes really, really quickly, and you're like, wait a minute, what?
I watched Canope.
Oh, that's right. Oh, that's right. Trevor watched Koyaanisqatsi.
Koyaanisqatsi, that's the...
Trevor, you did... So the deal is, if y'all don't know, we can tell Trevor what movie he has to watch. But if you get 2 stinkers in a row, then you're out. So we have to make sure that we at the very least make sure that every other one that you watch is a good movie so that we can continue the process. So,
Taylor Swift in concert.
No. Chris, the idea is to make him watch movies he has not seen.
Oh, that's
so that he gets cultured in something
Trevor.
other than Taylor Swift. So
Trevor, you ever watched Hunt for Red October?
Oh man, I love that movie.
Wasn't that one that you had me watch?
I don't know, was it?
I don't think so.
You tell me.
Oh.
I don't think we've had you watch that. I feel like I would remember.
Sean Connery trying to do a Russian accent.
Okay.
It's great.
Your conclusion is all
so
wrong,
my
Ryan.
My thoughts on the movie. So first of all, I should say, Jack told me, he's like, I don't want you to watch it until you've done a very long workout, and then you can watch it when you're like tired. So I climbed...
the idea was that you needed to be mentally excited or pleased with what you had just done, but physically tired, so you weren't just like sitting there impatient. Because if you don't know what Koyaanisqatsi is, there's no dialogue in this movie. It's like a lot of time lapses. There's a lot of beautiful imagery. It's almost like an experimental sort of film.
It's just like the duality of like nature and then human violence, kind of like
that's a fair way to put it.
Yeah.
Hashtag
anyway, so I followed through. I had a 10,000 calorie workout before watching it, which was a lot.
Good job.
Yeah, that was a fun day. And so I was very tired, and I was bored during it, but I saw the idea that the film director was going for or whatever.
Okay.
And I think they did a very good job toward that idea. It's just not something I would watch. So
But was it a bad movie? This is a really long pause. What the heck was that? Who is mooing?
I think Kevin's found
boring
Danger
but well executed.
Chris, you got a hot mic.
It's not me.
Let the man answer. Was it a bad movie, Trevor?
I think you should be safe for next week.
That's a really low bar, but I'll take it. We got to figure out what we're making you watch next. I think we started a list.
Okay, my vote is either Hunt for Red October or October Sky. There's a theme here.
Ooh.
Here's the thing. In the strategy of it, we have to give him now a movie that we think he will not like. Because this week we passed, which means we are free to give him a movie he will not like for next week, and then the week after that we give him a good movie again. So I feel like October Sky is a safe bet for a movie he will like.
Yeah.
So let's not give him October Sky for this week. Let's save that as a wild card that we can use to get ourselves out of the hole.
Yeah, that's fair. Somebody said War Games in chat. I'm also putting that in my pocket.
I really like War Games.
It's too good.
Or Doctor Strangelove, or How I Learned to Love the Bomb.
I've seen Doctor Strangelove. It's garbage.
It's my favorite movie. It's literally my favorite movie.
Riding down on the bomb with the... Oh, yeah.
Slim Pickens, man. Here. This is the war room.
No fight in the war room.
Joshua called me.
Yeah, because I've seen I think the two worst movies I've seen one was Doctor Strangelove, and then the other was not The Princess Bride, one of the Monty Python movies.
Oh my
Had
God.
to watch them.
You
Monty
no,
Python is just atrocious.
Can we agree that Trevor is banned from Flame Train from now on?
We're trying. This is why we're doing the movie thing with Trevor. We're trying to help him be better, and we're trying to help him understand what good actually is.
Can't sink in Spaceballs. A lot of chats
Oh,
in
yes.
Spaceballs.
Yeah, Spaceballs is a good one.
Ludicrous speed.
It's a good one,
I
but
think
Trevor might not like it, so that's kind of clever.
I'm gonna have to do some serious thinking on what the next movie is. Because like I said, you gotta be strategic about it.
Sir, the radar, sir. Appears we've been.
And the other thing is if it's a movie that's quoted a lot, and somebody has heard all of those quotes like, out of context of the movie, and then they see the movie and they're like, yeah, this is that thing that everyone quotes all the time. Like I don't know. But either way, we can do a stinker this week. We can make him watch one that he doesn't like. So we're safe.
You're drastically overestimating the amount that I pay attention to expressions of speech. So I probably wouldn't get any, even if you had me watch a movie with tons of references, I don't think I would notice the references.
All right, that's fair. Well, we're looking at the gifts of the week. That means the show's over. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Chris, thank you for jumping in, man.
All right, well, I do. I like jumping in.
We got the Burgonator. Thanks, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, seriously. Ryan, also thank you for sharing the Starship knowledge.
Hey.
Love it as always.
Hey,
EJ?
Chris, look on the stream real quick. Look what I got. What I got, buddy. Yeah. Are you jelly?
Jaffa Cree.
Oh, no,
Cree.
I'm so jelly. Those are so good.
EJ, Cree.
What? Huh?
Cree. Jaffa Cree.
Yeah. What's that? I gotta go.
Can we just appreciate just how bad this music is?
It's pretty bad.
It really is.
Bad.
Can we get some Taylor music instead?
We would get
Copyright strike straight away.
Yeah, we get copyright strike.
Yeah, but what if we should buy a license for like Fortnite?
Yeah.
She's rich enough as it is, Trevor.
Thank you, Kevin, also for jumping in and for producing and running the whole stream. I think my neighbors next door are having a literal concert, so I am going to mute myself and stop talking. Hopefully you all can't hear that. Holy cow. But thanks for watching The Flame Trench. We'll see you guys on the next one.
And here we go. We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be normal.
RCPA chamber pressure looks good.
Rolling up. Roger, planet.
Water towers, fly! Yes! Tango down to nominal.
Flight comes IFT off. Bring in ST off. It's orange!
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage.
What is it?
Put that in the big bag,
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
This methane would be igniting the flare, correct?
Yikes. You good? Sure. We don't need any more of these.